OpenAI has made a big announcement today, and that is that they're trying to implement a bunch of different ideas from everyone in the general public. And the idea is to have these essentially crowdsourced concepts they want to include in their models that are quote unquote helping it to align to the values of humanity. This is not just a challenge that OpenAI has, but a lot of other AI companies, as obviously this AI is being rolled out globally. And when you have these software tools that are created in, say, one country like China or Russia or United States that might have different ideological beliefs or cultural beliefs than other places, it's kind of interesting how we create one tool or one AI that can, give good outputs for people all around the world when a lot of people have different views and beliefs about different things. So I think this is a big problem to solve that they're currently working on. I have a couple ideas on how I think they can do this better, but we're going to dive into all of this on the podcast today and talk more about what they've said in their big announcement and the program that they're going to be launching in order to do this. I wanted to say today's episode is sponsored by AI Box. If you haven't listened to it yet, I recently recorded an episode about how we have just passed $400,000 raised on our crowdfunding platform for AI Box. If you're interested in investing in that, I definitely check out that podcast episode, and you can find a link in the show notes to republic.com/AI-box to see what we're building there. But let's get into the episode.
We gon' bring it to you just like that. Welcome everyone to the future. It's AI Chat, bringing you the interviews and giving you info to be in the know from tech company CEOs of. Rock with us, bet you gon' come back. I'm just saying the facts. This is AI Chat. Let's go.
So the big news here is that OpenAI says it wants to essentially implement a bunch of different ideas from the general public about how to make sure that its future AI models, so not really what we have now, but probably GPT-5, unless that's already being trained. So potentially even, further down the road, GPT-6, 7, 8, quote unquote, align with the values of humanity. So with that in mind, OpenAI is essentially creating a new, they're calling it the Collective Alignment Team. But this is a bunch of researchers and engineers that right now are going to create a system for collecting and encoding public input into their models, behaviors, and they essentially want to get all of this public input and they want to put this into all of the different products and services. And they did all of this today. They made a big announcement on their blog. So they said, quote, "We'll continue to work with external advisors and grant teams, including running pilots to incorporate prototypes into steering our models." In addition to that, they also said, quote, "We're recruiting research engineers from diverse technical backgrounds to help build this work with us." So this is absolutely fascinating to me, and I think this is something that's definitely needed. We see companies like Anthropic, and I think that their take on this was to build constitutional AI, where it's just like clear what the AI model believes is right or wrong, and whether you disagree with their constitution or not, at least you know where it's coming from on a lot of different issues. And I think that transparency is what's been lacking with OpenAI and ChatGPT that people have kind of criticized. And so now it would appear that they're trying to solve this problem, but perhaps they're going a step further than the constitutional AI approach of Anthropic. And their solution is to gather kind of this input from people all around the world, and on what they think is important and what aligns with the values of humanity, and put it in here. Now, this is definitely going to come with a lot of challenges, because where do they source this data? What is weighted more heavily? What are the values of humanity? I mean, I think by and large, a lot of those might be kind of straightforward, right? Obviously protecting human life, et cetera, et cetera. But I think there's going to be a lot of gray areas where maybe I don't think there should be gray areas, but others think they would be gray areas. And there's going to be a lot of debates in all of this. So I think in order to try to solve this problem, because really what this is the Collective Alignment Team. This is just kind of an extension of this public program that OpenAI launched last May, which essentially was set up to give awards and grants to fund experiments in setting up what they said were, quote, a democratic process for deciding what rules AI systems should follow. And the whole goal of that program that they said when they launched it was essentially just to give money to teams and individuals, companies, to develop proof of concepts that could answer questions, especially questions about like governance of AI and guardrails and everything related to that. So this seems to be a bit of an extension onto that, where they're going to be giving funds and trying to solve this problem. But they're not trying to solve it 100% internally. They're going to be, looking for people outside of their organization. Now, OpenAI, in this whole blog post announcement, they were kind of recapping some of the work of the people that received grants earlier for this program. And so there was a bunch of different really interesting projects that got money. They had video chat interfaces, platforms for crowdsourcing audits of AI models. And they said, quote, approaches to map beliefs to dissemination that can be used to fine-tune model behavior. So all of the code that was actually used in the people that got these grants and all of their work, all of the code that was used in that was made public just this morning, along with a bunch of different summaries for each proposal and some high-level takeaways. So it seems like they're actually making a lot of progress on this, and this is something they're taking seriously. This is really interesting, and a lot of, I think from their perspective, they're saying, hey, look, we're trying to be, the OpenAI you wanted us to be, where we're taking input and we're publishing the code and we're making all of this open and we're going to try to incorporate this. And I think that this is at an interesting time, obviously, when we have EU regulation, and a lot of people are, giving Sam Altman criticism for some of the commercial interests. I think specifically you have the UK that's investigating OpenAI and their partnership with Microsoft. And I think, some people might be like, oh, it's just one country, the UK. But I would say look at what the UK's regulators just did to Figma and Adobe in that multi-billion dollar, was supposed to be a merger, but then it fell apart because it's interesting. It wasn't even the United States, or it wasn't even the EU. It was literally the UK's watchdog group that shut that down. So I'm not exactly sure where they stand on this, but it seems like they have a bit of an outsized power in shutting down some of these mergers. It's definitely regulation in tech right now is very, very tough. It's at a point where it's not easy to do mergers and acquisitions and all that kind of stuff. So I think, I thought it was very clever, the partnership between Microsoft and OpenAI, because essentially OpenAI got acquired by Microsoft, right? They bought over 50%, so they control the whole company, can make all the decisions. But it wasn't a merger that needed to be approved because it was technically just an investment, which is, it's, to me, seemed like a clever way of acquiring OpenAI. But it would appear that, I don't know how clever it is, because it looks like the EU is kind of investigating them there. So there's a whole bunch of regulatory things that they're facing right now, and they're setting up a Dublin-based subsidiary right now to reduce, the ability of certain privacy watchdogs in that area to act on some of the concerns. They're hosting some data over there, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely a tricky place for OpenAI right now, and I think they want to, when they're facing all of these challenges, they really want to show themselves as, look, we're an open company that's taking everyone's perspectives and trying to, implement them in the best way possible to make this model good. So I think this is very interesting. If we had people all voting on what they thought were great things to add into an AI model and what was aligned most with humanity, I think that's, a step forward, a democratic AI model. That being said, though, I think when you look at a country like the United States, who's obviously a democracy, there's still people on very different sides of the political spectrum with very different beliefs that vote different ways. And so I think at the end of the day, an AI model that's going to win might not actually just be the democratically voted on, like, these are all of the ideals we think should be pushed or perceived as good in the AI model. I think at the end of, and I think people will try to do that, and they'll try to make like the one AI model that works for everyone. I think at the end of the day, there's probably going to be, just like there's going to be thousands of AI models that are specifically good at doing different things, like good at breast cancer research or good at, geometric shape, mathematics. Like, there's going to be these specific AI models that are good at very specific things. I think there's also going to be specific AI models for people with, or at least an AI model that allows you to tune and set your like political beliefs or your ideological beliefs, and it follows that. It's like almost like Anthropic's constitutional AI, but you can customize your constitution. I think that's going to be what's successful ultimately at the end of the day. And probably not just vote on what's more popular, like, oh, this ideal has 51%, popularity and 49% don't approve of it, but since it's got 59%, we're going to like inject it into the model. Like, that obviously isn't going to win, because half, or even if it's 30%, that's still a big chunk of people that might not believe with or agree with some sort of ideological element embedded in these. So I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to let people customize their own models beyond just, voting on what goes into them. or there's going to be multiple models that are, specific for people that have different. There's going to be like in America, there's going to be like, Chat GPT for Democrats and a Chat GPT for Republicans, and maybe a Chat GPT for independents or libertarians or, whatever. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. I'll definitely keep you up to date. This is definitely a very interesting area that I think is important for us to start looking at. So it's exciting to see how this rolls out. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app, or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Thank you for listening to the AI Chat Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, I'd appreciate it if you rate me wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're looking for an innovative group of AI enthusiasts, make sure you check out our Discord channel and also our Facebook community. It's obviously a lot more interactive than a podcast, where we can actually share software tools, prompts that we're using in everyday AI. I'll leave a link for those in the description below.